Good day, class. Welcome to our new quest in general mathematics. We have introduced function in our previous course material. This time, we will be discussing more about function, its domain, range, and types. And this Edpuzzle module has been designed to help students to find the domain and range of the given function, identify basic types of functions, and also define piecewise function. Based from your learnings in the previous course material, when is a relation considered a function? To answer the question, we will recall the definition of a function. A function is a relation where each element in the domain is related to only one value in the range by some rule. And functions are often denoted by any letter in the English alphabet or Greek character. And like this example, we are using this English alphabet and also we are using this Greek character. Functions are written as f of x equals y, where f is the function, x is the independent variable, and y is the dependent variable. Usually y is expressed as an equation that represents the relation of the independent variable to the dependent variable. Moving on. A relation is any set of ordered pairs x and y. The set of all first components of ordered pairs called the domain. Also, the set of all second components is called the range. And in here, for our first example, we will find the domain and range of the following functions in the ordered pair notation. We have function f equals the elements of 1, 3, 2, 4, 5, 7, 6, and 8. And for our solution to find the domain, we will just write the first components. So we have 1, 2, 5, and 6. Also, we have the range 3, 4, 7, and 8. And this is the domain and range of the given ordered pair notations. Another example, we have function g in this case. So we have negative 2, 4, negative 1, 1, 0, 0, 1, 5, 2, and negative 2. And for our solution, we have the domain. So that is negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, and 2. So that is the first, these are the first set of first components in our ordered pairs. Also, the range is 4, 1, 0, 5, and negative 2. Now, we have focus questions here. The first one is, how do you determine the domain and range of a function? The second one is, what are some basic types of function? And lastly, how piecewise function different to other types of function? Another way to identify the domain and range of functions is by using graphs, because the domain refers to the set of possible input values and the domain of a graph consists of all input values shown on the x-axis. However, we have the range, and the range is a set of possible output values which are shown in the vertical or the y-axis in this graph. Pero kailangan natin matandaan na kapag ang graph ay nagko-continuous beyond the portion of the graph, we can see that the domain and range may be greater than the visible value. So, mas malaki pa ang magiging values nito kapag extended ang ating graph. So, from the graph on our left side, you can observe it extends horizontally from negative 5. So, domain muna tayo. Ito, may guide naman ako sa taas. From negative 5 to the right without bound as suggested by the arrowhead on the right. So, ibig sabihin, walang katapusan itong ating graph. So, I would say that the domain in here is negative 5. So, open bracket. Why bracket? Because this negative 5 is a closed circle So, including numbers siya. So, that is negative 5 up to the positive infinity because the graph is without bound. Right? So, the next one is the range. From here, our range our range values is 5 and below. So, the range is negative infinity to 5. But we have to take note na mag-i-start tayo sa pinakababa muna na up to sa pinaka-top or pinaka-highest point ng ating graph. Note that the domain and range are always written from smaller to larger values or from left to right. And ang range naman natin ay isusulat natin from bottom to the top of the graph. So, that's why we have the domain and range in interval notation in here for our first example. So, that is my remarks for this particular example that we are doing here. Sa ating pangalawang example, so we will find the domain and range of the function f whose graph is given below. You can observe that the horizontal extent of the graph is negative 3. Horizontal tayo, no? Negative 3 to 1. Okay, as you can see, I have here the guide naman sa taas. Tignan lang natin, nag-start yan from negative 3 up to positive 1. So, therefore, the domain is negative 3 up to 1. But you will notice that negative 3 is parenthesis. Why? Because the negative 3 here is an open circle. So, the domain of f is negative, parenthesis negative 3 up to 1, close bracket. Because 1 is including, because that is close circle. Okay? While the vertical extent here of the graph is from 0 to negative 4. So, we could write it as from negative 4 to 0. Why? Because mag-i-start tayo sa pinakababa ng ating graph papunta sa pinakataas na point ng ating graph. So, that's why we will write the range as close bracket negative 4, open bracket negative 4 up to 0, close bracket. Okay? So, that is the domain and range for this given function. Now, let's work out for our first activity. Find the domain and range of the following functions expressed as ordered pairs. So, hanapin nyo muna yung domain and range ng f and g sa given activity na to. Then, write your answer in the Edpuzzle menu. Also, this is the continuation. For the number 3, find the domain and range of the following functions. We have domain, we have this graph. Hanapin nyo ang domain and range niyan. So, choose your answer. And for number 4, ganun din, hanapin nyo ang domain and range ng given na to. Also, lastly, we have 5. What is the domain and range for this particular given? Okay, so, dahil dyan, nalaman na natin kung paano mag-graph or paano maghanap ng domain and range ng particular graph, also ng mga set of ordered pairs. And we have some basic types of function. So, how would you describe the graph of the constant function? So, by the way, the constant function is a function of 0 degree that is of form f of x equals a, where a is constant and a must not equal to 0. So here is the constant function graph, and the domain here is all real number. So lahat ng numbers sa domain ay kasama, while the range is the element a only. So in the vertical extent here, so matatama lang yung graph sa 2. For example, dito sa sample graph natin. So the range must be only one element, that is a, the element of a, or the element of constant number. Okay, that is the constant function. Now, moving on, linear function is a function of first degree that is of the form f of x equals ax plus b, where a and b are constant and a must not equal to 0. In this example, we have f of x equals 3x minus 2. The graph is given below. So this is the graph of this function, and the domain and range are all real numbers. So makakasama lahat ng mga numbers, since wala naman tayo restriction here, kasama lahat ng numbers or sa x-axis and sa y-axis. So that is the linear function. Quadratic function is a function of the form f of x equals ax squared plus bx plus c, where a is not equal to 0. In this example, we have f of x equals 2x squared minus 4x minus 1. The graph is given below. So this is the graph of this example or this function. And you have to take note for these guidelines para masulat naman natin ang domain and range niya. So, by the way, the domain is always all real numbers if wala naman restriction. By the range, so magkakaroon siya ng variation. So may restriction dito, may condition. If a is greater than 0, then we could use this formula to find and evaluate the given function. Also, kapag ka less than naman, we will be using this formula. Okay? In this graph, the domain is all real numbers. So, ibig sabihin, kasama lahat ng numbers sa horizontal axis. And the range is y such that y greater than or equal to negative 3. From the graph, makikita naman natin na ang mga y or range natin ay pwedeng kasama si 3 papunta sa pinakataas ng ating graph. Diba? Bottom to top tayo. So, as you can see, parang nag-start tayo kay negative 3 dito. Kung lalagay tayo dyan ng line, guide. Tapos, papunta yan sa pinakataas. That is up to positive infinity if we are writing it in interval notation. But dito, gagamit tayo ng notation na ganitong format. Okay? So, that is quadratic function. And also, we have the polynomial function. Polynomial function is any function f of x of the form f of x, and this mahabang form, no? C sub n of x raised to n plus c sub n minus 1 x raised to n minus 1 plus dot 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 plus and so on and so forth, c sub 1 of x plus c sub 0. So that is the polynomial function, and ito yung example ng graph niya, at ito yung sample ng polynomial function. By the way, polynomial function, as you can see here, so ganito yung niya, more than 3 yung kanyang given highest degree dito. So this is the graph. And the domain and range are all real numbers. Okay? So we have to take note na kapag polynomials, if wala naman restriction, the domain and range are all real numbers. So for more examples in here, so we have f of x equals y equals 3x minus 1. Ginigay ko na yung domain, di pala dito, no? So the range and the domain and range are all real numbers because that is a linear function. Di ba kanina sa linear function, lahat ng domain and range niya ay real numbers. So kapag ka-interval notation siya, ganito naman yan susulat. So negative infinity up to positive infinity. Same with the range as well. In this case, we will see more examples for this given function. But we will be using the format kanina na ipinakita ko sa inyo. This is the formula that we will be using na may condition. Okay? So, f of x equals y equals x squared plus 3. Unang gagawin natin dyan, identify natin yung coefficients ng function na to. Okay? So, we have a equals 1 because 1x squared or x squared ay may invisible na 1 dyan. So, we'll write the first term. The second term is missing. So we will write b equals 0. Wala naman kasing x dito, no? And c, or the constant one, is positive 3. So we wrote the ABC, the coefficients of this equation. Next is we will identify kung yung a ba ay greater than kay 0. Totoo ba? Si 1 ba ay greater than kay 0? Kung totoo na greater than kay 0 yan, anong gagamitin natin dito sa range? Ito bang sa taas o nasa baba? Kung greater than kay 0 yan, kung ang a natin ay greater than kay 0, ibig sabihin gagamitin natin itong nasa itaas. So, of course, the domain is by default, that is the all real numbers, since wala naman tayo restriction dito. While the range is this, no? We will be using the top side of our range. Ngayon, y such that y is greater than or equal to f. Okay? Yung f natin, merong negative b. So, yung negative b natin dito ay, yung b natin na coefficient ay 0. So, pinalitan ko na ng 0 yung b. Yung negative ay minintain natin over 2. So, which is yung 2 ay given a fixed number. And a, which is the first coefficient na 1. So, 2 times 1. So, just plug in this coefficient dito sa ating given formula. Next is y such that y greater than or equal to, when we simplify this particular portion of our range, that is f of 0. And if we evaluate f of 0, okay, we will evaluate, or we will just plug in 0 sa original equation natin kanina na ang equation kasi natin is x squared plus 3. Palitan mo lang yung x dito ng 0, so we have 0 squared plus 3. Then we simplify. The f of 0 equals 3. Then, ang ibig sabihin lang yan, ang ating range ay y such that y is greater than or equal to 3. So, ibig sabihin, yung mga y natin or range natin ay mas malaki or pwedeng si 3, tapos mas malaki pa dun kay 3. So, that is the domain and range for this particular example. The next one is f of x equals y equals negative x squared plus 2. Okay? So, ba't ko pa nilalagay yung y dito? No? Also, you can write f of x na lang. But for me to demonstrate ano ba itsura niya, no? Pwede niyo ring isulat si y dito. As we continue, we define or we specify the coefficients in each given term. So the coefficient for the first term is negative 1. Yun yung second degree natin. For the second, yung atin namang first degree, since wala naman siya at hindi naman siya visible sa function, we will write 0. And c is the coefficient, that is 2. And we decide kung ang a ba ay less than kay 0. Totoo ba? Si a ba ay less than kay 0? Or greater than kay 0? So in this case, si negative 1 ay less than kay 0. So mas malaki si 0 kay negative 1. So we will use the lower part of this condition sa range natin. So that is the domain. The domain is by default real number, and the range is y such that y less than or equal to f of negative b over 2a. And that is equal to this form. Pinalitan ko lang or pinlog in ko lang yung mga coefficients dito sa b and a. Okay? Next, y such that y is less than or equal to f of 0. When we simplify this one, that is 0 automatically. Kapag in-evaluate natin, we will use this particular function or equation, no? We will evaluate this function, f of 0 equals 0 squared. Dapat may negative dyan. Nakalimutan ko nilagay. Plus 2. Okay? However, kahit may negative dyan, no? 0 pa rin naman yan. At ang matitira dyan ay positive 2. Therefore, the range must be y such that y less than or equal to 2. So, yung ibig sabihin, yung mga range dito ay pwedeng si 2, tapos mas mababa pa sa kanya yung magiging range natin. So that is how we find the domain and range kapag ang given ay equation lang. Tapos dito ang highest degree natin is 2. So ibig sabihin itong given equation natin or given function natin is quadratic function. Now, for our workout number 2, find the domain and range of the following functions. You have number 1, f of x equals y equals 5x plus 3. What is the domain and range? Also, g of x is equal to y equals 4 minus 3x. What is domain and range? Patuloy pa natin. Kanina meron tayo. Ito naman ay quadratic function. Dapat 3 and 4 ito. H of x equals y equals x squared minus 2. Give the domain and range. Also, f of x equals y equals 2x squared minus 5. Domain and range. The types of function discussed previously have been represented by a single equation. In many real-life problems, however, functions are represented by a combination of equations, each corresponding to a part of the domain, and such functions are called piecewise function. A piecewise function can be defined as a function that is defined by two or more equations over a specified domain. And for example, the piecewise function given by f of x, we have 2x minus 1 if x is less than or equal to 1. Also, 3x plus 1 if x is greater than 1. So, one equation gives the values of f of x when x is less than or equal to 1, and the other equation gives the values of f of x when x is greater than 1. So the first thing that we will do here is to make a table of values. So we will graph this piecewise function first for us to have an intuitive part of this function. So the first table that I will present to you, so you could make an evaluation of function for this table. So ang gagawin nyo lang naman, isusulat nyo lang yung mga values ng x. For example, mag-start ka sa 1. So, itong ating value dito, mag-start ka sa 1, tapos papaliit, no? From 1, 0, negative 1, 2, and 3. So, marami pa yan. Marami pang values ng x. Pero, we can use at least 5 inputs here. So, but you could also use as many inputs as you want. Okay? So, dito, nag-start ako kayo 1. When if I plug in 1 sa original equation na 2x minus 1, we have f of 1 equals 2 times 1 minus 1 equals 1. Okay, that is our first ordered pair, 1 and 1. Next, if you plug in 0, that means you have 2 times 0 minus 1 equals negative 1. Then, furthermore, if you plug in negative 1, you have f of negative 1 equals 2 times negative 1 minus 1, that is negative 3. You can see the pattern. So I hope nakikita nyo yung pattern niyan. Parang nababawasan ng dalawa, no? Yung ating mga numbers or points dito sa range value natin. This is the domain. This is the range. Negative 2, if you plug in, you have 2 times negative 2 minus 1, that is negative 5. And so on and so forth. So we have completed the 5 inputs and outputs here for this first piece of our function. And the next piece of our function is 3x plus 1. Hihiwalay lang natin muna yan. Pero ang sabi dito kay 3x plus 1, dapat daw si x ay malaki kay 1. So x greater than 1. So what are those? Hindi ko na siya in-specify yung solution, I just wrote the given ordered pairs na lang, no? If you plug in 1, try nyo i-plug in yung 1 dito. So, 3 times 1 plus 1. So, that would be 4. Okay? By the way, yung x greater than 1, sinama ko si 1 dito. Though 1 in here is not an including number. So, ibig sabihin, mamaya, itong si 1, kapag pinlat natin, hindi siya dotted points. Ito ay open circle. Okay? So, 1, 4. Plug in 2. 3 times 2 plus 1, that is 7. Plug in 3. 3 times 3, 9 plus 1, that is 10. Plug in 4. 3 times 4, 12 plus 1, that is 13. As you can see the pattern, nadadagdagan lang siya ng 3. So, that is 5 and 16. Okay? So, we just wrote down the table of values for this given two functions, okay, in pieces. Now we are down to the graph of this piecewise function. And since meron na tayong table of values, pa-plot na lang natin yung mga values na nakuha natin dito. Ngayon, pag pinlot natin yan, ganito yung lalabas dyan, no? Then, I connect the dots. So, I have here two linear function dito sa ating piecewise function na magkahiwalay sila, no? Dito, yung yellow one, that is f of x equals to x minus 1, where x is less than or equal to 1. Okay? So, these are the values na na-plot natin. Okay? It is extended because there is an arrowhead dito. Pero may limitation siya hanggang kay 1 lang siya. Si 1 na yung pinakamalaking number. Okay? Kasama si 1 dahil may equal sign dito or equal symbol dito. So, x is less than or equal to 1. Kaya, shaded part ang ating first input dito. Pag in-input natin si 1, di ba lumalabas ay 1? Ito yun. Shaded part siya. However, the green one is f of x equals 3x plus 1, where x is greater than 1. So, wala siyang equal, no? Ibig sabihin, ay hindi kasama si 1 dito. So, 1 is not included dito sa ating function. Kaya, open circle ang ginamit natin dito. Okay? So, as you can see, when you try to plot this following inputs, ito naman yung lumalabas dyan, no? 2 is 7. Ito yun, 2 and 7. 3 and 10. And, as you can see, when I connect the dots, hindi ko man nailagay yung ibang points, pero alam natin na dun papunta yan sa taas. Okay? The domain in here, napakita ko na sa inyo, no? The domain is from negative infinity up to positive infinity. Why? Because, as you can see dito, tignan natin yung graph, extended siya, no, from the left side, papunta yan sa negative infinity. And for the right side naman, ng ating horizontal axis or x-axis, when you try to draw a vertical line test dito, parang tatama pa rin yung sa graph, no, up to positive infinity. However, the range would be like this. Okay, so medyo complicated yung range natin because pag mag-start kayo sa bottom, okay, alam naman natin na tatama yan sa pinaka-negative infinity niyan, no? Itong point na to because that is an extended point or that is an extended arrow. So, dito, tatama yung, kapag nag-try kayo ng horizontal line test dito, tatama yan. Pero, hanggang kanino lang siya para sa first piece natin. Hanggang kay 1 lang siya. Okay? Pero si 1, kagaya nga na sinabi ko sa inyo, including number siya dahil may equal sign. Ito yun, di ba? Ito yung graph na yun, yung yellow graph. So, ito rin yun, no? From negative infinity up to 1. 1 is bracket because that is including number. Okay, however, since nakita kayo ng parang space dito, we will be using this symbol. So, union ang tawag dyan, union. Okay? So, dahil may space dyan, we will be using union symbol. And, mag-start tayo kay 4. Sinama natin si 4. However, sabi ko nga sa inyo, when you plug in 1 dito, yung 4 na output dito, itong points na to ay hindi included. So, ibig sabihin, open circle lang siya. Kaya, parenthesis ang ginamit natin dito. Up to, as you can see the graph is extended, okay, up to infinity. That is infinity. So, the range would be negative infinity up to 1, close bracket, union, open parenthesis 4, up to positive infinity. And that is the domain and range of this piecewise function.